Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Inspirational Interviews. I'm Hannah Levin with heartfeltwellbeing.com, and I'm super excited to have a conversation today with Kristen Lee, who is a phenomenal educator, and she has a path that is really interesting. I'm going to read her bio in just a moment. But I also want to remind you all that these interviews happen every Wednesday at 4 Eastern Time, and that I interview lots of people from different areas of expertise that have something to offer us in our inspirational evolution right now. So I offer these to you as a gift to help support you in your journey. And today's guest, Kristen, has a lot to share with us about understanding our feminine energy and our gifts in a time when we often try to push aside our femininity when we say, oh, I'm on my period, or things like that. So we're going to get into some period talk today. Don't be shy, and type in comments if you have comments or questions along the way. And please grant StreamYard permission for us to see your name so that we can see exactly who is commenting. So let me introduce Kristen. Kristen is a yoga instructor, certified Reiki level 2 practitioner, and women's wellness coach. After spending 17 years working in the healthcare industry, primarily focusing on helping babies and new moms transition into motherhood, she started Essential Switchback to help women who struggle with PMS and painful periods. Kristen works with women on blending their lifestyle and personal preferences with the science of our hormones, energy healing, and movement. So I'm super excited to welcome her to Inspirational Interviews. Welcome, Kristen.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Hannah.
Yeah, I'm super excited to talk with you. Why don't we start with you sharing a little bit about your story? When did you realize that you needed to make a change in your health?
Absolutely. I am, like as Hannah said, I am a nurse and I have been a travel nurse for the last 7 years, which means that I travel across the country to different hospitals to work with mothers and babies. And during that time, I was just constantly in the go mode. I was really in my masculine energy. I was constantly, just cycling around, working a ton, and then playing a lot, like hiking and biking and doing all these things, and never really stopped to sit with myself or kind of have that feminine energy. And it really resulted in painful periods, debilitating cramps, terrible PMS mood swings. And really, I just could not cope when I was getting my period. I was calling out of work, which a lot of women do, and I just was having these terrible cramps. So I went into my OBGYN, and she just kind of brushed it off. She wanted to give me birth control or get an IUD, which is something that I really didn't want. It works for some women, but it just, when I was on birth control a long time ago, it just didn't work for me. So I decided to kind of take my health into my own hands. I really started researching women's wellness and what to do with different hormones throughout the month. And I found that there really wasn't a lot of information on syncing your cycle to your lifestyle. There's just a lot of information on if you have PMS or painful periods, do birth control or an IUD. And there's a lot of other natural, holistic ways that you can actually limit these problems to have. So I started really researching and digging into the wonderful world of syncing your cycle to your periods. And it really just helped me start to have better periods every month. I lost a lot of water retention that I was holding on to. I was able to sync my periods with my workout plan, whereas before I was just doing whatever my spouse did. I was like, oh, it's easy. Like I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to think about it. I'll just do what he does. I was eating everything he was eating, and it didn't work for my body. So that's why I was resulting in all these PMS symptoms. So yeah, I started digging into the world of women's wellness and found that this is something that I wish I would have known 20 years ago, because if I knew this, I probably wouldn't have had all these different problems. So now I really turned my pain into my passion and started Essential Switchback and helping women with their cycles. So it's been a lot of fun and a huge growing curve that I really enjoyed to see transformations from different women.
Yeah. And it's such a different time in our culture too. I mean, I can imagine um, in other generations it being like, you don't talk about these things. But I also think as our culture has been pushed, like our women in our culture are more expected to be like super women, right? To have careers and families and to look like they're doing it all without breaking a sweat, and to get enough sleep and to exercise, and all these things that I see more and more menstrual difficulties. And I know that millennials are having higher infertility rates than any other generation before. Um, and so I just feel like the conversation about menstruation, about bringing it into the light and being like, people need to know more about this. It's not just something that bodies know how to do and you don't think about it and you put up with it. We can actually affect how we feel during it. So tell us, how does a women's cycle impact her health and everyday life?
Yeah, absolutely. Our hormones control our mood, our sleep, our energy, our metabolism. I mean, they control us, right? They control us throughout the entire month. And this is why an imbalance can feel so awful or confusing to a woman, because we don't know what hormones we're going through each month and what we're supposed to have, and there is one higher than the other, and there's just so many different things that can impact it. So really, when you're supposed to be resting and taking it easy, maybe during menstruation, and you're hitting it hard at the gym, or you're, constantly busy and doing all these things that, you think you're supposed to be doing, you always think, oh, we're supposed to be busy. We're supposed to be doing all these things. And in all reality, take 10 minutes and stop what you're doing and just kind of sit with yourself and sit within your body. So as our hormones control our moods and our lifestyle, and knowing what hormones are supposed to be high during one phase of our cycle and what hormones are supposed to be low during one phase of our cycle, it can impact the way we do everything within our lives. And something that I'll kind of just briefly touch on, if you don't know the phases of your cycle, there are 4 phases of your menstrual cycle. The first one is your menstrual phase, which is the bleeding week, which all of us women know. And so that typically lasts about 3 to 7 days. And then we have our follicular phase, which is the next phase of our cycle. And that typically lasts 7 to 10 days. And then it goes into ovulation, which is the shortest phase of our cycle, which is 3 to 5 days. And then we have our luteal phase, which is the longest phase of our cycle, which a lot of women correlate with their PMS symptoms. And that typically lasts about 10 to 14 days. So during these 4 phases of your cycle, if you know different exercises to do and different, you can even plan it like through business, like if you're going to work every day, like what things should you be doing that, you can also like push to the side, or, I know everyone can't do it. It would be great if we could all like take our whole menstrual week off, but that's just not feasible. But just taking that 10 minutes to actually look within yourself and go inside and be like, okay, what phase am I in? Start tracking your cycle, which I think everybody should do. But that's just because I talk about it all the time. But definitely just start tracking your cycle and be like, okay, this is the phase that I'm in. What's happening? Where should I be at? And being able to correlate that with your lifestyle is so very powerful.
Can you give us a couple little examples of how that correlation looks in different parts of the cycle?
Absolutely. So one thing I really like to touch on is exercise, because a lot of us, just constantly over exercise, or maybe under exercise, or, just constantly in this battle of like, what should I be doing and when should I be doing it? So during like our menstruation is a great time to rest. And I tell a lot of women that it's a great time to focus on your yoga practice, or just go for walks. 20 to 30-minute walks is just a great time to do that for your exercise. This is the time in our cycle where our hormones are at the lowest. So you're not going to have a lot of energy anyway. If you have energy, that is wonderful. And I'm sure every woman admires that. But it's really a time just to kind of look within, rest, do yoga, do some light walks. And then when we transition into our follicular phase is when our estrogen and progesterone start to rise again, which are our two main hormones that we kind of seesaw with. And then you're going to notice this little rise in energy. So that's a great time to start doing little higher intensity workouts. Still doing, incorporating the yoga, but if it's like a power yoga or, a vinyasa style yoga, as well as maybe like some cardio. If you're a runner, go for a run, or different kind of dance classes, kind of something new and fun to try. And then your ovulation is when your hormones are at the absolute highest and you're going to feel your absolutely best. You're going to glow. And this is the time where your energy is going to be really high. So those HIIT workouts are really good. The high intensity interval training for that week of your ovulation. And then during your luteal phase is when your hormones start to drop again. And this is a 2-week period is our luteal phase. So during the first week is, you can still do some of those intensive workouts. But then during the second half of the luteal phase is really when you're going to start to kind of bring it back in again and know that, and let's listen to your energy and you'll know, wow, I really don't feel like working out today. So don't work out, go for a walk. And those are really the big baselines of exercise and the phases of your cycle.
Great. Yeah, that's really helpful. And I guess we can look at that too in terms of like if we are designing our work schedule, say, that we're doing more like outward focused things as we're leading up to and through ovulation, right? And then doing more like internal
work,
planning, thinking work towards menstruation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's really amazing during ovulation is like what you'll notice if you start to get in tune with the phases of your cycle is like during ovulation is like when you want to wear brighter clothes and you're just like you stand out to everybody. And I always tell a lot of my clients, like, if you want to ask for a raise, this is the time to do it because no one's going to be able to say no to you because you're like glowing and all your hormones are firing. And it's just, it's an amazing, amazing time.
Awesome. So give us some tips of what are some things we can do to improve PMS and our menstrual health?
Yeah. So a lot of things that I tell women is like how to ease painful periods naturally. It's something I just touched on a second ago is really you need to start tracking your cycle if you're not already. There's a lot of great apps for it, but just to know what phase of your cycle that you are currently in is really powerful to just, be able to sync your lifestyle. Also, being able to trust your intuition and honor this time of the month when you are menstruating, because this is really, like I said, a time where you really go inward, and it's a great time to sit with yourself and really kind of plan out the rest of your month. So it's kind of like correlates with the moons as well, right? So it's like the full moon and the new moon, where this is the time where you're really like sitting with yourself and journaling and how can I plan the rest of my month? So really just honoring that time and that intuition that you have, maybe taking 10 minutes. I know there's a lot of busy moms and a lot of working moms that, do everything. So just being able to sit for 10 minutes, either early in the morning with yourself or whenever you can, just to kind of be like, okay, this is how my day is going to go, and be able to settle into that and lean into that feeling that you're actually having. Another thing is listen to your body's cravings during your period, because if you're craving something sugary or chocolatey or anything like that, it could correlate with something that you're craving. Like if you're craving chocolate, maybe you're craving like the magnesium or the manganese in the chocolate. So it's a great time to eat like that dark, rich chocolate that really is like the magnesium in that. So listen to your body's cravings and what you actually need, and don't fall into buying like the junk chocolate if that's what you're craving, but really be prepared. And every month you'll know, like, this is what I'm craving, this is what I need, and you'll have it available. I'm a big fan of sweet potatoes, and I always crave chocolate during my period. So like just having like that, being able to eat that sweet potato, you're like, oh, this will like totally hit the spot right here, or the dark chocolate. And then being aware of your lifestyle. So being aware of, like I touched on, like working out, or during your menstrual phase, if you want to take that rest and go inward, don't say no to that. Listen into that, lean into that, and it's okay to rest. We live in this society where, everyone has to continuously go and race to do things that, they always feel like they have to be busy. So just lean into that, tuning into your body and resting. Another thing I really like is rituals. I'm a big fan of any kind of ritual. It doesn't have to be a morning ritual. You don't have to label it as a ritual, but journaling is one of my favorite things. Having a gratitude list, during that time when you feel like you're just like snipping at everybody, or you're like, have low energy, or you're having headaches or cramps or anything, any of these symptoms that you're having, just being grateful that either showing up for them and they're there. I know it's hard to do when you're experiencing these kind of things, but really just writing it all down, writing everything down in a journal. And those are just being mindful. I think it's all about mind, body, spirit, and cycle. And I tell women that PMS really stands for prioritizing myself. So make sure during that time that you really put yourself first, even though I know it's really hard for a lot of us to do, but just take that time for yourself, because it'll make all the difference in the world in the next month to come. And you'll start to notice this, domino effect, and you just start feeling better and better every month.
Mm-hmm. Will you talk a little bit about our kind of cultural normalization of PMS being something that makes us moody and we're in pain and have headaches and whatever, and that's normal?
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, right.
It's not. It's something, like I said, this was me, a couple of years ago, and I was just struggling. And when you actually look at, when you Google symptoms of PMS, or if you even put that in the computer, like PMS or mood swings, it's always like a woman like sitting on the couch holding her belly, or like, oh, with an ice pack on her head, or, just this terrible misconception that how it really shouldn't be. And I just feel like we're in this society of, always having to do things and go places and all these different things. So I really feel like slowing down and embracing that feminine energy, and not really being in your masculine so much, which is always like the busy go mode, and stepping back to take time for all of that is really, really powerful, because your periods don't have to be debilitating. And that's really how a lot of people see the way that they're going is, oh, well, here, have some ibuprofen or get on birth control. And that's just not, there's so many more holistic approaches that you can actually do within the society that people don't talk about, doctors don't talk about. When I went to the doctor, they were like, oh, just have some birth control. And I'm like, no, can we have a conversation about what's happening here? Because I'm getting these debilitating cramps. That's normal. It's not normal, so just actually talking about it and having these conversations about it with your, with other women or your friends, or even your daughters, if they're going through this kind of thing, which a lot of, young teenagers do. And it's just not something that should really be shoved in the corner. It's something that needs to be talked about.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We, in Ayurveda, we look at any signal from the body as communication, right? So if there's pain or discomfort, or you don't feel great for any reason, then we really need to pay attention and say, what am I not noticing here, or what's out of balance? And it's interesting how we, especially around menstruation, are just like, oh yeah, that's normal.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah,
it's really something that I work with a lot of my one-on-one clients with, because they all come in and they're like having these terrible periods or PMS symptoms. And it's really something that it doesn't take just one cycle to notice, like a woman's hormones reset every 30 days. So a man's hormones reset every morning when they wake up.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, if we try something during this month of our cycle, it takes a full 30 days to actually see it. You're not going to feel better the next day. It's going to take this cycle to see what's happening. And then you're like, oh, well, that worked, or that didn't work, whatever I tried. So just leaning into what's working and what's not working. It might take a couple months for you to actually figure out what it is that your body needs in order to function at its optimal levels. And then after that, it's just like smooth sailing. And really, we're already intuitive to it. You know, we're really in tune. And we just don't realize it. When we have low energy and we want to push through that energy, it's not something that we need to do.
Right. It's borrowing energy from our future.
It is. Definitely. It's going to make your periods even worse the next month.
Right. So along those lines, I have struggled more with what I call Vata periods from Ayurveda.
Yes.
It's more like scanty. What I keep describing as stubborn. Like my body doesn't want to bleed, and that's what I've struggled with more in my life. And I have been doing seed cycling, which has been really helpful. Will you talk a little bit about what that is and how it's helpful for women?
Absolutely. I love seed cycling. It's something really simple and easy to do that you can implement right away. And like I said, you might already see a change in your next cycle from doing it. So basically, seed cycling is tracking your menstrual cycle and eating these specific seeds at different days of your cycle. So it really helps ensure these optimal levels of estrogen and progesterone that I talked about in the different seeds. So I already kind of went and touched on the bases of the phases of your cycle. So the 4 seeds that are involved are pumpkin seeds, flax seeds, sesame seeds, and sunflower seeds. So the pumpkin seeds and the flax seeds, you typically eat menstruation to ovulation. So those are the days 1 through 14 of your cycle. And then the 2 S seeds, which I kind of just put those together at the end, the sesame and the sunflower seeds, you eat from ovulation to menstruation, so days 15 to 28 of your cycle. So the theory behind it is that the progesterone and estrogen will help, level out in these different seeds. So it's just really amazing just seeing, just by doing such a small step like that, how it can totally change your entire cycle in a 30-day period. And you can add them to anything, really. You can add them, I like to put them in oatmeal, in smoothies, my salads. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can actually add them into your lifestyle. And I have little jars that I just have on my shelf with the different seeds and what phases of my cycle that I'm supposed to be eating them. And it's just another small tool that you can use to help your periods and your PMS symptoms. So has it helped you, Hannah? Have you noticed a pretty big difference from it?
Yes. Yeah. And I've been doing it for quite a while. And actually last winter when I moved from North Carolina to Virginia, I stopped doing it while I was moving and didn't pick it up for a while, and my periods got worse. And I was like, what am I doing? And I was like, oh, I stopped seed cycling, because it is a little bit of an effort to be like, okay, every day I need to get these in me. And you get a little sick of them.
You do. And that's why I just end up putting them in my smoothies sometimes, because I have the little jars and I just mix them all together, so I don't have separate. So there are ways, but it does get oh, do I have to have sunflower seeds again today?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. But I eat stewed apples for breakfast a lot of days, and it's very easy to just dump the ground seeds on top of that. And I have a little chart on my refrigerator that shows me which seeds I need for what part of my cycle. And so yeah, it's very nice. So Melanie just wrote in and she said, are there any foods we should or shouldn't eat if we're experiencing painful cramps?
I really lean on the side of intuitive eating. I don't really give specific foods on different things that you should be eating and you shouldn't be eating, because I feel like it kind of triggers some things for anybody, for myself included. So basically it's really just about what you think you should and shouldn't be eating. I like a lot of cruciferous vegetables when I'm on my period. I feel like foods that are really high in iron, because you're losing iron. That's really good to have during your period. But as for shouldn't eating, I think that you really need to tune in to your own body and know what feels good for you specifically.
Yeah. Great. Awesome. And Betsy also wrote in, she said, I'm listening so I can share with my daughter-in-law and other young women in my family and circle of friends. But I feel like there's some wisdom here too for older women who aren't necessarily cycling anymore, that are postmenopausal,
Mhm.
but still we're aligned with the moon phases. We're still cyclical beings. Do you have anything you want to say about that stage of life and this wisdom?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't typically, since I haven't been there yet, I don't really like to put
Right.
my 2 cents in it because people are going to be like, well, who are you? But I definitely do think that a lot of the foods, the same foods that you're eating, and just even exercise patterns and lifestyle choices and mindfulness, I think is so important when you're going through all the hormonal swings and all the hormonal changes. Because as women, we all go through it. We all go through these hormonal swings. And if you're not really tuning into what is happening within your body, then it's just going to compile on top of each other. So really just being mindful of
Yeah.
different foods that you're eating and exercises and lifestyle choices that you're making, I think is really powerful.
Yeah. And deep nourishment, that later part of life too, I think is
Absolutely.
so key. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So wonderful. And what else? Tell us a little bit about how you work with people and where people can find you
Yeah.
if they're interested in learning more.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work with one-on-one clients through I call it the Switchback RX program, and it's a 3-month program that we really dive into your hormonal health. And I work with you one-on-one for 3 months, and we go through, we touch on mindfulness. So it's basically mind, body, spirit, and cycle. And we really get you in tune with the different phases of your cycle, as well as different things that you can do along those 3 months. And it's not, like I said, like an overnight fix. It's a lifestyle change. So it's really coming in to do the work and getting in touch with your hormones to get rid of these PMS or painful periods that you're having. And I'm also hosting a group program, which I'm really excited about. It starts November 2nd, so this coming up Monday. And it's really just kind of to kickstart your journey to no PMS or period pain. It is going through the masculine and feminine energies and how we can balance those, as well as all of your inner seasons, is what I like to call them. So I know we touched on all the different phases, and they correlate with the seasons of the year. So your inner winter, spring, summer, and fall, and different exercises and eating choices and habits, and how to sync your cycle with your life. So it's going to be a 5-week group program. And you can find that. I think Hannah's going to leave the link for it below, and you can sign up. And I'm really excited to really help women on their journey to get to know their bodies better. I think it's very empowering, and I think it's just fabulous for all women to know.
Yeah. And you have a freebie too for people to learn more about
I
what
do.
you do and some
I
tips for them.
Yeah, definitely. It's the 5 steps to happy hormones. So it's really a 5-step guide on your journey to balancing your hormones. And that's free for everybody that's listening. And it's just a wonderful guide to get you on your journey to start balancing your hormones.
Great. So we'll put the links for those things with this interview. And for folks that are struggling with fertility, could we just get a little moment of just insight there, because that is becoming more and more of an issue in our culture too, not just painful periods, but even just being able to conceive.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, definitely. As I touched on earlier, I am a nurse and I do work with moms and babies, and I do see this all the time. It's really a struggle, and it just breaks my heart for women not being able to conceive. And
Yeah.
I think really being there's so many different ways to do this, but temperature tracking and really learning the different phases of your cycle. And if your luteal phase is too long or too short, or that window of ovulation just isn't there, that can all be kind of cycled and changed a little bit. I personally don't work with women on it, but I know people that do, that have had great success in conceiving afterwards. after they, do the temperature tracking and there's just little tweaks that you can make within your body during the different phases of your cycle to open up the windows a little bit more or shorten them if they need to be shortened, like your luteal phase. And it's, I think it's really a significant thing that women don't think about. They just, unfortunately, they get off the pill and they're like, oh, well, I'm going to have my periods and I'm going to get pregnant. And sometimes it just doesn't, unfortunately, work like that. So there is, it's not just, I'm going to get off the pill or get my IUD out and get pregnant. It's really, I'm stepping into your power of, your femininity and embracing that and knowing the phases of your cycle. So,
well, the work that you're doing too, just helping people have healthy cycles is supportive of fertility and the importance of that natural flow each month. I mean, a lot of people are on hormonal birth control, but that is actually a huge disruption to the natural cycles of the body. And women have this tremendous gift that we can take out the trash once a month from our whole systems with this release of blood. And men don't have that. When you're on birth control pills or have a hormonal IUD, you're not having actual periods. And so there's a lot of health risk. I'll say this from my perspective. I don't know if you feel that way, but I see a lot of health risk in taking birth control for a really long time and not having that natural cycle each month of cleaning out the body happen. And I think it leads to a lot of imbalance later in life as well. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents. Would you agree with that?
I would 100%. Okay. Yes, I definitely agree with that. And I have worked with women that have started off with working with me on their birth control pill or on an IUD and realized, this isn't something I want anymore. This is something I want to be able to have a more holistic route. And they end up coming off, and then we get their periods back in balance. So it's really powerful to be able to help women do that and just see the changes that they make within this period. So I totally agree with you.
Well, it's such a pleasure to talk with you today. Thank you so much for being a guest on Inspirational Interviews.
Thank you so much for having me and shedding light on this topic. I think it's really important to talk about. So
absolutely. Thank you for your good work in the world.
Thanks. You too.
Okay. Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Bye-bye.